Hello, everyone. Matt Malatesta, Jackson DePasquale, Matthew Ogle, Alex Hinson. The gang's all here in the VYPE Clubhouse. We're talking Greater Houston basketball, which didn't go great. Did not go great in the state championships over the weekend. For Houston, went great for other places, Dallas in particular. Houston goes 0 for 5. Doesn't get any state championship on the boys' side. The girls' side, Summer Creek, bringing it home. I love it. Thank goodness for them. Second Baptist boys bring home a state championship in taps.
St. Francis as well brings it home.
St. Francis as well. So there's a lot of travesty going on in basketball. And here's the biggest travesty, I think. We didn't win a state championship game. But how on earth is Shelton Henderson not a McDonald's All-American? That's impossible. He's the #1 player in the state of Texas, and he's going to Duke. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to hear about all these pro athletes' kids, okay? Because they're already a media engine because they're the son of pro athletes. Here's the thing. They better be really, really, really good. Boozers, look, if you're a pro athlete's kid, you can't be good. You have to be great. The Boozer twins, okay, maybe.
I think also with the Boozer twins, if I remember correctly, one of them is better than the other, but both of them are going to Duke. That's their dad's alma mater. But
Blah, 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 blah. They better be good.
yeah,
You better be NBA ready right now. Who else? What other pro kids coming out? It's somebody else that's
the one that actually I think is good, Elijah Arenas, Gilbert Arenas'
yeah.
son. Gilbert stays off, so now he's got the podcast, so everyone knows him on the podcast, but he really kind of stays out of just other drama as of right now.
We'll see.
Elijah is going to USC, so we'll see how he does there. I think he's a McDonald's All-American, and then also, um, there's one other kid that is an NBA kid.
They play at all these weird private schools. You can't tell if they're any good till they get there. But they've been playing with pro athletes forever. I mean, but whatever. Shelton Henderson from Bel Air High School has to be in the McDonald's All-American game, or the McDonald's All-American game is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. It's so stupid if that's the case. So, Henderson showed that he is an elite player. We tweeted out earlier. Is he the greatest player in the history of HISD? Is he the greatest player in the history of the city of Houston? You could make that argument. We will make that argument here shortly. I was impressed by his ability to get to the rim in his size and his athleticism and his IQ. I wasn't super impressed with the way he can shoot the deep ball. But he can get better at that.
But the game that we saw him in, he was the state semifinal. He was driving a lot. He could get to the rim easily. In the state championship, if I remember correctly, I watched some highlights. He hit some big threes or some big jump shots down the stretch to get them within two right before the timeout with 10 seconds left. So I think he has the. That's not necessarily his game. Like he would rather go drive slash get inside the paint because he's going to be able to get around the rim and do whatever he wants once he gets there. I do agree with you that I think shooting is the next step, but I think he can shoot it. It just might not be for in high school. Of course, we watch all the time. High school kids, you see a 6'5" kid playing center because you might be the biggest kid on the team. So it really just depends.
That guy is so good. And the beauty is he has upside. So if he can't, he's not a great shooter. Maybe he is a great shooter. But if he can become a great shooter. What do you see at the state championship game?
Well, yeah, I saw a lot more promise than I think you're giving him credit for. Like Jackson said, he did nail a couple threes. He showed some range. And that's with the pressure that they had on him because how are you not going to double team this guy? And I thought that Duncanville had a lot more talent spread across the board. It took their star guy, Caden Edwards, a little time to get cooking, but he was right there step for step with Shelton throughout the majority of the game. But they showed they had a lot more athleticism other than Edwards. They had guys doing alley-oops. They had a few just really spectacular plays. And I mean, it's not like Shelton did everything. Anthony Andrews, he goes by LJ. He had some clutch shots, and other guys kind of stepped up too. But it there's only so much Shelton can do, and he still kept them within 2 points with a juggernaut that is Duncanville, and I think that's in and of itself impressive enough.
That was something.
And
Yeah.
I think the biggest question there that a lot of people might be asking, maybe not because you had an open shot to win the game for Bel Air, but with 10 seconds left, the number one player in the state of Texas, Henderson, does not touch the ball. Does not touch the ball at all. Now, you got an open three and it just didn't go your way. So I'm sure if you hit that shot, nobody might be, maybe nobody is asking the question. But because you didn't make the shot, people are going to ask, why doesn't this kid touch the ball when you're down by 2?
Well, that number, I think it was number 14, if I'm not
Seven.
mistaken. Yeah, I mean, he made a three. He had like 7 or 8 points in that game, so it's not like he wasn't capable. I mean, at that stage, whenever you have only less than 10 seconds, there's only so much you can do. And Shelton, he spent a lot of those last few seconds trying to find a spot. It's not like it was for lack of trying. It's just they had two guys on him, and they were right on him. So they made it so that, hey, we're going to take your best guy out of the game. And if you can beat us with somebody else, so be it. But
It worked because they
it
gave
worked.
Yeah.
somebody else a shot and he missed it. But, if you look at the city of Houston, I'm going to go through some names. Quentin Grimes now, plays for the 76ers. Uh, Jared Vanderbilt, two McDonald All-Americans. Vanderbilt, he plays for the Lakers. De'Aaron Fox, Justin Jackson, Justice Winslow, the Harrison twins, Cam Ridley went to Bush, Rasheed Suleiman, Tommy Mason Griffin, Jai Lucas, DJ Augustine, Daniel Gibson, TJ Ford, Rashad Lewis, Jimmy Butler. He was okay in high school. He wasn't like the dude in high school. Clyde Drexler, that was 100 years ago. Carson Edwards was pretty special in high school as well. He was at Atascocita, went to Purdue, played a little bit in the league also. Could this guy be the best player to come out of Houston?
I think there's an argument. I think there's an argument there. I think I remember growing up because I was around the same age as De'Aaron Fox in high school. I remember watching the mixtapes on social media of De'Aaron Fox, and I think maybe De'Aaron just had the more buzz. Um, but I think Shelton is definitely up there. And then you talked about also a bunch of guys who are already in the league. Like, so it's interesting that on that list, think about the guys that are McDonald's All Americans and then think that this kid is not a McDonald's.
Everybody I listed
Exactly.
was basically on the All-American team, McDonald's, and this guy's not. That is just that's just a travesty.
And then didn't we say like the guy Fleming from Brennan? Is that his last name?
Yes.
Yeah,
Kingston Flaming as
Num-
well.
yeah, the number 2 guy in the state of Texas. He's not in it either.
he's going to U of H as well, but that's a joke. But I was really impressed with him, and I think he's got a huge upside. The thing with him is he's sneaky big. When you kind of talking to him, you're like, yeah, he's pretty big. But when he plays on the court, he seems really, really big. So I'm excited for him. We're gonna talk also. We'll talk a couple games. They'll talk about our all VYPE teams. Of course, he is our player of the year. There's no one really even close in the picture. Um, Other games. Oh my gosh, Katie Jordan, what a heartbreaker that they had as well.
I think that was
They,
the best game of
they
the
were
series.
there. They were there. They have a tremendous backcourt. They're
Hit a nice comeback in the second half.
they did, and the coaching is really good there. The problem is they're all seniors, so that team is done. I mean, they had like 12 seniors on that team.
Is Elijah Black a senior as well?
Yeah. I think the whole team is seniors. We'll take a look at it. But um great job by them. I mean, what are the odds of Katie Jordan getting there a couple of years back? Katie Tompkins got there. Seven Lakes has always been a power program as well. But hey, kudos to Jordan and what they did. What'd you see in that game?
Well, like you said, it was a first for both programs. Denton Geyer's been in the conversation. I think they were just, and both the coaches deserve all the kudos. I just think the fact of the matter is it took a while for Holt to get cooking initially, and they had some other guys that were stepping up, like Judaluwa Khan and Rayan Fadika. Both of them were their two bigs that had some big moments, but I think in the later stages, the definitive factor was the coaching by Denton Guyer because they were up by 3 points with I think it was like 40 seconds left. And Jordan just took too long to figure out what the coach was planning. He basically, I think, in that huddle, they had a timeout. Denton Guyer's coach, I think his name's Grant Long, if I'm not mistaken. He probably told them, let them score the layup because they had two fouls to give. And Jordan took too long to figure it out. They had a wide open paint, and I think it was Aluakon. He was trying to find somebody back out in the 3 point range so they could tie it up, but they ended up with just score. And they had two fouls to give, so all they had to do was inbound it twice, and by the time, and luckily they were fortunate enough that they didn't make any of their free throws on the other end of the court, so they had 1.8 seconds remaining and
It's tough.
1 point to score, and they didn't even get the inbound pass off because they were right on them with the press. I just think hats off to coach for Denton Guyer. They earned it. They had a lot of guys that stepped up, particularly Silas Rodriguez. He ended up being named the state MVP. And I mean, no, I hadn't heard anything about this guy before. And then he ends up going scoring 20, 21 points, makes a clutch three at the end that ended up putting them up by three. And that was what led to the events I just described.
The bigger surprise also was, Fort Bend Marshall, they just kind of got blown out a little bit in their game.
They lost by 6 or 8 points. So I
Yeah,
mean, they were in it, but by the end of the last minute and a half, people were like, "Okay, it's over."
right. So they lose. Um, Booker T
Got blown out.
They
blown out.
Wheatley
And then Wheatley,
blown out.
yeah. So, I mean, it's great that they all got there. And I do love that they're getting more teams there with the opening of, D1, D2 in all the playoffs.
I think that also might keep kids staying at certain high schools.
Yeah.
Because, we've seen, I think the biggest issue for Houston with basketball, as much as that we do have good players here, a lot of those younger good players end up going to the academy schools or end up going to different prep schools. And that affects a team because, like, you think about a team like Seven Lakes this year, I believe they might have gone 3 or 4 rounds deep.
I believe so.
Yeah.
They had a kid last year who was top 10 in the country at guard. Played last year. Last year, I think they were regional finalists or maybe even state semifinalists. That kid leaves and goes to an academy school. Well, think about the Seven Lakes roster that we have. We're going to talk about one of these kids here later on. Think about if you add that piece to that team, what they could look like. And that's what the teams in Dallas are able to do. That Duncanville team, you talked about two of the seniors. Well, the guy who really is a catalyst on that team as well, who only had 2 points in that game, is Beckham Black, who's the younger brother of Anthony Black, who won state for them 2 years ago and now plays with the Magic. They have four guys going Division 1 versus Bel Air. You have maybe one, maybe Andrews gets something late. That's two. But think about all the talent that is at one school and all these Dallas schools versus in Houston, it's spread out and then you have kids leave. So I think the two divisions allows kids to stay in Houston because there's more chances to win a state championship. You don't have to go to this other school to try to already start playing prep ball, trying to get the
Yeah.
McDonald's All American. You can do it in
The
Houston.
guy you
So
were talking about, was that Nigel Pringle from Seven Lakes who ended up transferring?
no, that
Nazir,
that that was
Nazir
Algier
Price.
Price,
There.
If you're
yes,
priced
and
right.
he's at Link Academy now. And then another kid, just to bring up a name, John Clark was another kid who was
Right.
a big time
Klein
name at
Kane.
Klein Kane. He's committed to Texas or signed to Texas now. Well, he left too. So it's just that I think that's maybe the main difference in Houston and Dallas. I think that you see more kids leave here, and then they're able to, in Dallas. You're just
Keep it
able
together.
you're able to keep all these kids together.
And Legacy Sports Science is right here also, and they take kids as well.
And well, yeah, in that Dallas region, I think, like you mentioned, they have a lot more of a younger foundation. And speaking of that Beckham Black kid, Coach Peavy there, whenever they were in the press room, despite the fact that he scored,
I think he had 2 free throws down.
yeah, he had a single digit point, but Coach Peavy from Duncanville was saying he was so confident in his younger guys. He put that Beckham Black kid on the number one guy in Texas for the vast majority of the first half and said, "Hey, he's your guy to guard. Stay on him." And I mean, there's only so much you can do to keep corral Shelton Henderson, but he did really well, and there was a reason he was one of the 3 players that ended up on the press room box, and they got another guy, I think his name's like Christopher Burns or something Jr. He was the one that got that alley-oop dunk, and I don't know, Dallas, it's there's so much more upside, but whenever it comes to the divisions, I think this year proved to everybody in Houston, like, hey, stay here because we can get right back there and we can prove why we deserve to win a championship. But who knows?
It's interesting. There's just so much debate about it. I think that the AU basketball scene and the prep
Basketball
school
culture.
is just it's just a problem. And you're not going back in time and fixing it all
Plus,
Yeah.
it's
all
tough to
that.
gauge just how good a player is. Like, if you're playing, like, what's the competition? And
Yeah.
especially in nothing against the SBC teams, like Episcopal and Houston Christian, like they definitely have some dudes, but whenever it comes down to it, there's only 15 other teams you have to end up beating to get a championship. So it's difficult to compare that to say, well, what if they played a 6A basketball team?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, let's talk about some names.
All right.
Let's give some names. Who do we love? Um, not that we'll unveil all of our rankings soon, but on the guys' side, who do we feel like had great seasons?
I think that you could start with man, Shelton Henderson, obviously we've already talked about, but you could talk about Michael Collins from Shadow Creek, back-to-back district MVP. He's a kid that was in the preseason whenever we ranked them, I think top 5, we knew that he was going to be one of the catalysts for this team. Obviously, they have the Houston commit there as well, Bryce Jackson, but he was a big catalyst for them. He almost got them over the top over Jordan. Just that one spin of the ball that just hits the rim wrong, and it could have gone a different way. But I think Michael Collins had a big year for Shadow Creek. Shadow Creek had a big year in
They
general.
only lost 3 games, I think, all year, and they won like what it was like 32, 33, and 3. And yeah, he was definitely a baller. He was I gotta give hats off to Jaden Holt as well. Like similar to Caden Edwards in the 6A D1 game for Duncanville. Holt, it took a little bit for him to start cooking, but he ended up getting 20 plus points as well. That's what I was so impressed with was the depth in Katie Jordan because they had Elijah Black as well. Uh, but I mean, if you want to talk about if we're sticking with like the state teams, the state caliber, uh, LJ Andrews, he had some clutch shots. He was just as big of an influence as Shelton Henderson. He took a lot of the pressure off of the other guys, and that's why they had a little bit more opportunity to make some shots. And I think that's what kept them in the game the entire time. Um, we haven't talked much about College Park.
Yeah, I thought they had
Yeah.
a tremendous season. Um, You know, and they had to do it a pretty tough way because they had to go through Region 2, but they had a really nice season. Grand Oaks had a nice season. They didn't College Park didn't even win their district. Aiden Buckman is a guard there who had a great season as a leader and the big shot maker. They have another player, Ian Inman, who's committed to Colorado, but it seemed like Buckman was the guy that was the most consistent um,
He
player for them.
he ended up getting the all tournament team.
Yeah, which is, you know, I don't remember a Conroe ISD team going that far
I
in
think
a long time.
I think Connor ISD put out. I think it might have been the first time since either the '90s or the '80s, and that was Conroe High School back in the day that
Right.
actually made it to a state Final Four appearance. So, really special year for College Park.
Yeah, that was great for them. I did like I'm a big Isaiah Santos guy from last year. I just think he's so good from Seven Lakes.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a if he continues to grow, he's going to be a special talent. He plays internationally.
Was he a junior or a sophomore
I think
this
he's
year?
sophomore this year.
Yeah, yeah, he's a sophomore. So he's got 2 more years. He's really good. Got that big body as a guard. So I think he's going to have some room to grow. But
I think
Bryce Jackson's an interesting name. He's been so injured in his high school career. I mean, bad injuries. He's going to University of Houston, but he was a big time player for Shadow Creek and had a great season as well.
another guy that I think we need to talk about. Two guys really for Fort Bend Marshall are Kevin Sargent, Ian Lowe. Both these guys had big years. Sargent was kind of the guy all year for this Marshall team. He was kind of the rock of the foundation for the team. And then Ian Lowe, big state championship game. I think he finished with 28 points. maybe even more than that. But big season for Fort Bend Marshall. They've made it to the state Final Four before, never really have been able to punch that ticket this year. They're able to punch the ticket, weren't able to get it done, but I think that uh, the Buffs will be back in the state contender kind of position next year. So we'll really strong seasons from both Lowe and Sargent though.
Another team that, had a great regular season, was rolling through the playoffs, was Stafford. They were the number one team in 4A, and then they ended up losing to, I think it was either Booker T. Washington or Wheatley, but they had a really great season. Um, they just couldn't get it done at the end. Private school, okay, Second Baptist Win State. Our player of the year is Little Skip Alston, just a sophomore. Tremendous point guard. Um, he had a great year for them, and they kind of cruised through TAPS, honestly, in the TAPS tournament. They said the toughest game that they had was against TWCA, and that was a Houston on Houston team. So great for them. Again, St. Francis, Win State. They have a lot of really good players. Nigel Walls, of course.
John LeBoy.
LeBoy is just a great shooter. And then Omarion,
Harvey.
that dude is so underrated. I think he is a bullish dude in there, can really do damage inside. He's a great jumper, great finisher around the rim. So kudos for those teams.
And then also just showing HISD some more love. Wheatley and Booker T. Washington made it to state as well. Talking about 3 Houston ISD schools making it to the state championship, big for the communities. Obviously, weren't able to bring it back home,
Yeah.
but still huge for those communities. Wheatley had a great year. They had an exciting, crazy game against Yates, bringing back an old rivalry game. So kudos to Wheatley. Booker T, they've been in the state conversation the past few years. Getting back there this year was huge for them after everything that's been happening over there. So kudos to Booker T Washington as well.
Girls basketball, pivoting to girls basketball. So then, you know, we had the whole buzz of Cy Springs and Ayla McDowell and Gemini Mitchell, and they were making that run and having a great season. Well, it got derailed kind of near the end. And then you have a Summer Creek team who nobody really was counting on, because they had a new coach again for the third time in 3 years. And they had an injured player in Kennedy Simpson who ended up getting back and healthy.
Plus,
And they had a young group, and they had a lot of kids graduate last year, and they make a run and win state. So they kind of stole the shine from Cy Springs. Of course, McDowell's All-American. She's going to South Carolina. Gemini Mitchell's going to be a super freak superstar. But other players that we thought had tremendous seasons, of course, you have Hightower. They reached the state finals. Barbers Hill had a great year. They reached the state semis. So it was a really good year in girls basketball.
absolutely. I think another reason why Summer Creek was kind of doubted was throughout the first half of that season, they did have some injuries, but they had such a gauntlet of opponents they had to play. And I think that was why they were so well prepared. Be like, in the later stage of the playoffs, be like, hey, we played this team before. We know their weaknesses, we know our strengths, and we know how to take advantage of that. But individually, if we're talking H-Town girls hoops, I mean, I like Natalia Gray a lot because A-Leaf Taylor, I think it was the first time they've ever been that far, reaching the regional final. And she wasn't alone. They had some other interesting players on that team, but I mean, Alpha, there's no doubt about it. She was the top dog on a team that surpassed expectations.
Yeah, she was really good. She's heading to Mississippi State. I think what happened to them is they play a Hightower team that's loaded. Like, they're so deep, and they've got bigs and they got guards, and they just kind of ran out of gas against them. But they were that close to reaching the state Final Four, which is big for A-Leaf Taylor. Uh, or, uh, yeah, so for A-Leaf Taylor, another team, we talked about Hightower so much this season. They get so close, but they'll be back. I think they have some young players that are coming back. Of course, Okihi, the big in the middle. Um, she's gonna be a special talent.
Yeah, I think she showed that she can be a dominant player in the city of Houston, and I think that we'll see maybe some recruitment start heating up here after the AAU circuit and all that good stuff. But she was great this year. I think you also have to talk about Bree Riley at Grand Oaks. I think she surpassed, I want to say 2,000 points in her career, something crazy. She was awesome this year. I think she led them a few rounds deep as well. She had a great year, so shout out to Bree Riley, doing it for the guards out there.
Right.
And then also, I mean, I think Andrea Sturdivant, she was district MVP in the same district as Hightower. She's been a star player for the Austin Bulldogs past 3 years. She had a great year as well.
She did. But it's cool to see teams like Grand Oaks make a run, which we really don't talk about Grand Oaks that much in girls basketball. Katie Taylor makes a really good
I
run.
think that was the biggest surprise.
Yeah, that was a really good surprise. They had a great year last year. They have a new coach that's been there a couple of years, and she's really turned it around in a very tough district. And a team that's really good that came so close was Clearbrook. Clearbrook had a tremendous season.
Yeah, well, actually, I think yeah, that I think Southside just had so many excellent teams. I mean, you got them, you got Dawson, Pearland, Clear Creek. I don't. No one expected them to do as well as they did. Granted, they lost in the bye district, but they had 20 plus wins, and you just don't see that too much. Manville wasn't a slouch either.
Dickinson had a good year. A
They,
lot of Southside teams.
and but like I think the team that might have the most potential, and granted, Dawson did go the furthest out of any of those South Side teams, losing only to Summer Creek. And I don't know, Kendall Ford, she was their MVP this year. Then you talk about Pearland. Pearland was young, but they have so much star power with Isaiah Blair and Shiloh Grays. Blair was named offensive MVP. I think she's going to be one of the highest recruited players aside from Gemini Mitchell and Okiki because of the. I mean, she's more of like she's a point guard, but she's able to score. She reminds me of Bree Riley, the fact that she's able to put up those number of points despite her size. I think it relates more to her handles and her athleticism and her ability to just elevate all the players around her. And I don't know. I think in the future, out of Southside, probably be Pearland, in my opinion.
Pearland will be good next year.
Definitely.
Private schools, Kincaid dominated. Kincaid dominated. Stacy Marshall over there. Um, she had basically, let's call it an all pro, all league team
But yeah,
of all stars, and they're super young. They're going to be great, and for the next couple of years, and they were beating public school teams handedly.
maybe Summer Creek.
They beat Summer Creek by like 30. Now it was early in the year, but they are really, really good, and they kind of dominated our all VYPE teams, led by
Mariah Alfred.
player of the year in private school girls basketball.
MVP. She was the transfer, if I'm not mistaken. She was the newcomer, and they were all sophomores this year, which was surprising because they were beating up on all these senior heavy teams. Granted, SPC could be a little asterisk there. However, like we said during their exhibition season, they were beating up on all these big schools, and they were playing like those Clearbrooks, as you said, Summer Creek. They were playing some Dallas teams. They were going all over the place. And the fact of the matter is that they were able to contend like that. It comes as no surprise that they were able to dominate the SBC in the later stages.
Yeah,
And I think other teams in girls private school, you got to talk about Concordia Lutheran making it to the Final Four. They had a big year. Kinley Benson was kind of their stud for the Crusaders. So shout out to Concordia. And then also you got to talk about Legacy Prep. Again, they made it back to the state Final Four. I don't know if they were in the state championship game or not this year.
They were.
They are consistently going to Final Fours, making the state game. They just need to bring
Yeah,
it home.
they-
They just need to bring it home.
And they did that after moving from TAPS 4A to 5A.
that's a big deal.
And
It's a big jump.
they only lost to Midland Christian in the end, but the fact that they were able to make it to the championship game in their first year moving up, that says a lot. I think we were talking about the twins before we got on here. We got, I think it was Madison Wilson and Caitlin Wilson.
They transferred from Rose Hill Christian, who had
Yes.
tremendous careers there, transferred to Legacy, and man, they just picked up where they left off.
And Charlotte Freeman on that team, she's an all-around athlete. I think she's a track stud. She might have been in volleyball as well. But yeah, the addition of those Rose Hill twins, I think that's really what propelled them to that level, and I'm really excited for them. Obviously, it didn't end the way they wanted, but the fact that they were able to do that while moving up is just a testament to the coaching and the culture that's been built up there.
Coach Audra May is a goat over there. She knows
You
what
just
she's doing. She opened the school back in the day, and then now she is the girls basketball coach, and they are cooking over there. So kudos to them. St. Pius the 10th, they were 27-3 this year, and they were young. Courtland Cloud, she's gonna be one to watch. 6 foot guard, only a sophomore. She's gonna be there the next 2 years. She'll be a player to watch out for. And then we also got to talk about St. Agnes making it to the Final Four. They are a power in taps girls sports, all girls sports, softball, girls basketball, girls soccer, everything. They're in the mix. So shout out to St. Agnes as well.
So that is our basketball 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, but we talked a lot about it. Just kind of, putting a bow on the season. Great season for Houston. I really wish we could have got a state championship, but 5 teams in the state final, which is a big deal. Summer Creek comes out with a state championship for the girls. Um,
I think Hightower will be there next year.
Hightower will be back. I think Summer Creek will definitely be back because they're super young. So watch out for those 2 programs on the girls' side. Guys, it's going to be a juggling match because, like you said, everybody goes off to these freaking stupid prep schools. Just stay at home, man. Just stay at home in Houston so we can get us a title. All right. So on the way out, Matt Malatesta, Matthew Ogle, Jackson DePasquale, Alex Henson. This is On My Whistle basketball wrap-up edition. We'll see y'all at the games.